Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Friday, February 13, 2026. And, we usually spend our time here analyzing the world that is, well, already built.
The stuff you can see.
Exactly. We look at the earnings reports, the established science, the things you can physically touch or, verify with a quick search. But today we are doing something fundamentally different. We are looking at the economy of the invisible.
Which is where, ironically, the most visible wealth actually comes from.
Right. We're talking about a very specific type of betting. If you look at how the majority of the financial world works, banks, mutual funds, even most standard venture capital, it is all designed to wait for proof.
It's conservative by nature.
Totally.
Yeah.
They want to see a graph that is already moving up and to the right. They want to see revenue. They want to see a product that works. Basically, they want to bet on the winner once the winner has already started winning.
Exactly. It's momentum investing. It's safe. But, and this is the crucial part, the returns are indexed to that safety. You get paid for the risk you take, and if you wait for proof, you've essentially removed most of the risk.
And with it, the outsized reward.
You've removed the reward.
But we have this incredible stack of documents today, articles from Netizen, some transcripts from late 2025, and of course the famous almanac. And they all focus on this small, rare group of people who do the exact opposite.
They master what the source calls the art of the leap.
The art of the leap. They write the check before the graph exists, sometimes before the product even ships.
Yeah.
And occasionally, and this is the part that blows my mind, before the founder even really knows what they're building.
It is a terrifying way to invest for most people because you are essentially writing a check for a hallucination.
A hallucination, that's a strong word.
I think it's the right word. Think about it. A founder comes to you in, say, 2008 and says, I see a future where we all carry supercomputers in our pockets, or I see a future where we rent out our spare bedrooms to complete strangers.
Okay, yeah. At the time, that sounds like madness.
It sounds like a hallucination. It sounds dangerous and crazy. The investor's job, the true angel investor's job, is to distinguish between a hallucination that's going to become reality and a hallucination that is just, a bad trip.
So today is going to be a three-part journey. First, we are going to profile 5 of these legendary investors. We've got Naval Ravikant, Cyan Banister, Esther Dyson, Fabrice Grinda, and Paul Buchheit. We're going to look at how they spot the future.
What's the pattern recognition they're using?
Exactly. Then part 2, we have a fascinating update on where they are right now in early 2026.
Which is so crucial because it proves this wasn't just a fluke from the 2010s. They are still doing it, and their theses are evolving.
And then for the whole second half of the show, we're going to pivot. We're going to zoom all the way in on the mind of one of these figures, Naval Ravikant. We have his almanac. We have his recruiting notes from late 2025, and his thoughts on the game of life.
The whole operating system.
The whole thing. So our mission today is to try and understand how to spot the future, how to build wealth, and, maybe most importantly, how to stay sane while doing it.
That last part is the kicker, isn't it? Because you can solve the money problem and completely, totally break the happiness problem. Naval's framework is one of the few that tries to solve both at the same time.
Okay, so let's start with that first part, the art of the leap. The Netizen article really dives into the psychology of this pre-product investing. Why is it so hard for normal people, for us, to do this?
Well, because it fights thousands of years of human nature. We're tribal animals. We are wired for consensus.
Safety in numbers.
Absolutely. If everyone else in the tribe thinks a certain berry is poisonous, you don't eat it. If everyone thinks an idea is stupid, you don't bet your life savings on it. But to be a successful angel investor, you have to be comfortable being wrong. Not just comfortable. You have to expect to be wrong most of the time.
And this brings up that power law concept that's mentioned in the source. Can you just break that down for us? Because I think when people hear risk, they immediately think gambling.
It is gambling, but the odds are structured in a completely different way. In a casino, the house always wins because they have a tiny edge on every single bet. Over time, that edge grinds you down.
The house wins.
The house always wins. In angel investing, the math relies on the outlier. If you invest in the public stock market, you're trying to make, 10% a year. You want to avoid losing money.
Right. You want a portfolio of good, solid companies.
You want a bunch of modest wins. In angel investing, you accept, that out of, say, 100 bets, maybe 50 of them will go straight to zero. You will lose every single cent.
Wow. 50% failure.
At least. And another 30 or so might just give you your money back. Maybe you make a tiny profit. So on 80% of your bets, you're losing or breaking even.
Why on earth would anyone do this?
Because you are hunting for the one. the single company, the unicorn, the decacorn that returns 100x or 500x or 1,000 times your money. That one power law outcome pays for all the losses and buys the island.
So you're not trying to be right 90% of the time. You're trying to be spectacularly right 1% of the time.
Precisely. And that requires a very, very specific type of personality. You have to be willing to look foolish over and over and over again.
Okay, so let's look at the personalities who have mastered this. The first profile in the source is Naval Ravikant. The Force calls him the founder-first philosopher.
Yeah, Naval is really the central character of this entire ecosystem in many ways. Before him, angel investing was a bit of a country club.
You had to know a guy.
You had to know a guy on Sand Hill Road in California. It was very opaque. Naval co-founded AngelList, which, well, it democratized the entire thing. It allowed normal accredited investors to pool their money in these things called syndicates and back startups. He opened the gates.
But his own personal track record is what really gives him the authority.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he invested in Uber when it was just a scrappy experiment in San Francisco.
I remember reading about early Uber. It wasn't this slick global logistics network we have now. It was clunky.
It was basically a black car service that you hailed with a text message. It barely worked. And he invested in Twitter when the smartest people in the world, the media commentators, were saying, "Why do I care what you had for lunch?" It was dismissed as completely trivial.
So what was he seeing that others weren't?
He was seeing the founder. Naval's core philosophy is bet on the founder, not the idea, because the idea will change, the market will shift, the product will pivot 10 times. But he looks for what he calls high agency individuals.
High agency. I love that term, but let's define it. What does a high agency person look like in the wild?
Okay, so a low agency person waits to be told what to do. If they hit a wall, they stop and they say, well, there's a wall here, I guess I'm stuck.
They file a ticket with the universe.
Exactly. A high agency person looks at the wall and says, okay, I'm going to break this wall, or I'm going to build a door, or I'm going to find a way to tunnel under it, or bribe the guard. They don't accept the default reality. They bend reality to their will.
So Naval is betting that if he gives money to a high agency person, even if their current idea is bad, they will eventually find a good idea.
Yes. He backs the person, not the spreadsheet. He invests before the dashboard even exists.
Okay, let's contrast that with our second profile, Cyan Banister. The source calls her the contrarian.
Cyan is fascinating because she seems to actively seek out things that are, for lack of a better word, socially embarrassing to invest in. Her portfolio is incredible. SpaceX, Uber, Postmates, DeepMind. But the SpaceX bet is the best window into her psychology.
Right, you have to remember the context. This wasn't the SpaceX that lands rockets on drone ships.
No. When she invested in SpaceX, Elon Musk was blowing up rockets on the launch pad, one after another. It didn't look like a genius move. It looked like a rich guy burning money in a giant, spectacular bonfire.
Looked delusional.
It looked completely delusional, and most investors are terrified of looking stupid. If you invest in a software company and it fails, well, that happens. If you invest in a rocket company and it literally explodes on television, people laugh at you.
So she's not afraid of that social risk.
She leans into it. The source says she looks for intellectual honesty and obsessive curiosity. If a founder is undeniable, but the idea feels slightly insane, that's when she gets interested. She monetizes the social cost. She buys when the price is low because everyone else is too embarrassed to buy.
Okay, next up is Esther Dyson. She's been in this game since the late 80s. The source labels her the long-horizon futurist.
Right, and Esther plays a completely different game from the others. She really represents patient capital. Most venture capital funds operate on a 10-year cycle. They need to invest, grow the company, and get a return for their investors within that decade.
So they need things that grow fast. Hockey stick growth.
They need speed. Esther asks a different question. She asks, will this matter in 20 years? She invests in health systems, genomics, commercialization of space. She was an early investor in 23andMe and Flickr. She isn't looking for a quick flip. She is looking for fundamental structural transformation of society.
That feels like a luxury, to be able to wait 20 years for a payout.
It is a luxury, but it's also a necessity for society, right? Some problems like curing genetic diseases or building a sustainable presence in space can't be solved on a 3-year timeline. If everyone invests for the short term, those big, hard problems never get solved. Esther fills that crucial gap.
Then we have Fabrice Grinda. The article uses a great metaphor here. If some angels are snipers, Fabrice is artillery.
Fabrice is a machine, a total machine.
Yeah.
The source says over 250 investments, but I think that's an old number. It's probably much higher now. But he isn't just spraying money randomly. He uses pattern recognition on a global scale.
What does that mean exactly?
His core thesis is that talent is distributed equally around the world, but opportunity and capital are not. So if he sees a business model that works in Silicon Valley, let's say, a marketplace for walking dogs, he knows that that same human need exists in Brazil or Nigeria or Southeast Asia.
So he looks for the Uber of Latin America or the Airbnb of Turkey?
Exactly. He exports successful patterns to capital-starved markets. He's playing a volume game, for sure, but it's a highly calculated, thesis-driven volume game. It's brilliant.
And finally, our fifth investor, Paul Buchheit, the creator of Gmail.
The product savant. And, if you built Gmail, which we have to remember completely revolutionized what email could be, you have earned the right to trust your butt on product.
He's not looking at the business plan.
He doesn't care about your slide deck. He doesn't care about your 5-year financial projections. He looks, for one thing, early product signal. He asks a very simple question. Do the first 100 users love this thing?
Not like it. Not find it useful.
No. Do they love it? Is it magic for them? Does it solve a problem so painfully that they can't imagine going back to the old way?
He invested in Airbnb, Stripe, Reddit. All of those started tiny.
Tiny and weird, and that's the key. Remember, Airbnb was literally people sleeping on air mattresses in a stranger's living room. It was not an obvious global hospitality giant, but the first people who used it, the early adopters, they loved it. It was a new, amazing experience. Paul trusts that signal, that little spark of magic, more than any spreadsheet.
So we have the philosopher in Naval, the contrarian in Cyan, the futurist in Esther, the strategist in Fabrice, and the savant in Paul. It's like a superhero team of early-stage investing.
It really is. And they all attack the problem from a slightly different angle, but the core principle is the same. Bet on what the future will look like, not what the present has proven.
Okay, now let's jump to the present day. It is February 2026. Usually in this industry, people make their money and then they retire to a private island to drink margaritas.
They fade into advisory roles, join a few boards. They stop taking the really early, crazy risks.
But the 2026 update in our source material says that's not what's happening here. All 5 of them are still active.
Which, to me, validates the whole thesis. These people aren't doing it just for the money anymore. They have enough money. They're doing it because they are addicted to the future. The source has a great line. Curiosity is still compounding.
I love that. Let's look at Naval in 2026. Where is he putting his chips now?
He is still writing checks, apparently in the $50K to $500K range, so still very early. But his thesis has definitely shifted. In the 2010s, he was famous for marketplaces, SaaS, that kind of software. Now, in 2026, he is deep into what people are calling hard tech.
So not just another photo sharing app.
No, we're talking AI-native infrastructure, biotech, deep tech, new energy sources. The source mentions a couple of recent bets, one in a company called Quanta and another called Thermopylae in late 2025. These are not simple consumer apps.
And he has a specific rule about AI investing, right? He avoids wrappers.
Right. And this is a big 2026 talking point for anyone in the tech world. An AI wrapper is basically just a thin piece of software that sits on top of a big foundational AI model like GPT-6 or Claude. It doesn't have its own intelligence. It's just a pretty user interface.
So it's easily copied.
Instantly copied. It has no moat, no defensibility. Naval hates those. He invests in the protocol layer, the plumbing, the really hard fundamental stuff that makes all the AI actually run. He's betting on the people building the engine, not the people putting a new paint job on the car.
Okay, what about Cyan Banister? Has she gone mainstream?
In a way, yes, but she's brought her philosophy with her. She's now operating institutionally via a fund called Long Journey Ventures. So she has more capital. They closed a fund for around $182 million last year.
That's a lot of capital to deploy on crazy.
It is, but the strategy seems to be the same. The source notes, they made a Series A investment in a company called Slora just last month in January 2026, and the description of it still fits her mold. Backing things that look irrational to a traditional financial model, but make perfect sense if you believe in the vision of the founder. She's just doing it at a bigger scale.
And Esther Dyson in 2026. Still playing the long game.
Absolutely. She's still independent, still very selective. The source mentions a seed investment she made in early 2025 in a company called Shotzi. She remains this crucial countercurrent. In an age of incredibly fast AI and quick flips, she represents that patient capital for the really hard science and health problems that take decades to solve.
What about Fabrice Grinda, the artillery cannon?
He has turned into a full-blown industrial operation. Through his firm, FJ Labs, he made 174 investments in 2025 alone.
174.
Yeah, do the math. That is almost one new investment every 2 days. He has completely systematized and industrialized angel investing to a level we've really never seen before. It's angel investing at factory scale.
And Paul Buchheit, the product savant.
He's still active, but very selective. His focus, according to the source, has narrowed even more to developable tools and infrastructure, basically products that other builders use. He's looking for things that feel like magic to the most discerning users in the world, other elite engineers.
So with him, selectivity signals maturity, not that he's retreating from the game.
Exactly. It shows he knows exactly where his specific knowledge lies, which is something we're about to get into. He knows he's the best in the world at judging a product for developers, so that's where he plays.
It's incredible that they haven't stopped. It really reinforces the idea that this is a lifestyle, a mindset, not just a job you retire from.
It's a compulsion to see what's next.
But I want to pivot now.
Yeah.
Because we've looked at the who, and I want to spend the rest of our time on the how. Because a lot of people listening might be thinking, this is great, this is fascinating, but I don't have a spare $1 million to bet on a startup. I'm just trying to pay my mortgage.
And that's the beautiful thing about Naval Ravikant. He isn't just an investor. He's become a philosopher of wealth creation for everyone.
He argues that getting rich is a skill. It's a learnable skill. He has this claim, I think he said it on a podcast, that if you took everything away from him and dropped him in a random English-speaking city, he'd be wealthy again in 5 or 10 years.
That is an incredibly bold claim, but his framework supports it. He's tried to break down wealth creation into a science. It's not about luck. I mean, luck plays a role for sure, but you can't build a strategy on luck. You can only build a strategy on principles.
So let's start with his core definitions, because he draws this very sharp line between wealth, money, and status. And I think most people, myself included sometimes, use these words interchangeably.
We all do, and he says that's the first trap you fall into. So let's break it down. Money, he says, is just a tool. It's a social credit. It's how we transfer time and value between people. It's the numbers in the bank account. It's a means, not an end.
Okay, just a tool. What about status?
Status is the dangerous one, because status is a zero-sum game. It's a ranking system. For me to be number one, you have to be number two. It's politics. It's office drama. It's who has the nicer car in the driveway or the bigger title.
So for someone to win, someone else has to lose.
Exactly. It's inherently competitive and adversarial, and Naval argues you should try to avoid status games your entire life because they make you angry and combative, and you're fighting over a fixed pie.
Okay, so if money is a tool and status is a trap, what is wealth?
Wealth, and this is the most important definition, is assets that earn while you sleep.
Say that again. Assets that earn while you sleep.
That is the absolute key to everything. If you are a doctor or a lawyer and you are making $500 an hour, you're doing very well. You have a lot of money. But you are not wealthy by this definition.
I don't.
Because you are a high-paid laborer. If you stop working, if you go on vacation, if you get sick, the money stops. Your income is tied directly to your time. Wealth is the factory that runs 24/7. Wealth is the computer code executing on a server. Wealth is the royalties from a book you wrote 5 years ago. Wealth is the equity in a business. It is a machine that produces value without your active minute-to-minute input.
Okay, so the goal is to stop renting out your time and start building these assets, these machines.
That is the entire game.
So how? He lays out 4 specific levers to build these wealth-generating assets. Let's walk through them. The first is specific knowledge.
This is a tricky one because it's kind of anti-school. He argues that you can't learn true specific knowledge in a classroom.
What does he mean by that?
If you can be taught something in a university lecture, that means the person sitting next to you can be taught the exact same thing. And if they can learn it, they can replace you. And if they can replace you, they can compete with you and drive down your price to zero. So things like, basic accounting or generic marketing skills aren't specific knowledge.
So what is specific knowledge then? Where does it come from?
It's the knowledge that you find by pursuing your genuine, authentic curiosity. It's the stuff that feels like play to you, but looks like work to other people. It's found, not taught.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Naval gives his own career as an example. He was obsessed with technology from a young age. He was also fascinated by economics and finance. And later in life, he got deep into philosophy. There is no university degree for tech finance philosophy. But by combining those three unique interests, he became arguably the only person in the world who could start AngelList. That unique combination is his specific knowledge.
He calls this talent stacking.
Exactly. The idea is that it is incredibly hard to be in the top 1% of the world at one thing. To be the best basketball player or the best coder on the planet is almost impossible.
Right, the competition is insane.
But it is actually quite achievable to be in the top 25% of, say, 3 different things. And when you combine them, you become the best in the world at that specific intersection. If you are a pretty good writer who understands basic accounting, and you also know how to code a little bit, that combination makes you a unicorn.
You can build a fintech product and then write the blog posts that explain it to people.
And almost nobody else can do that. You've created a category of one, and he has a favorite combo for this, a power couple of skills.
Learn to build plus learn to sell.
The ultimate power couple.
Yeah.
If you can build the product, coding, designing, engineering, and you can sell the product, marketing, writing, persuasion, you are unstoppable. You don't need a boss. You don't need a venture capitalist. You have complete sovereignty over your career.
Okay, that makes sense. That's lever 1. Specific knowledge. That leads directly to the second lever, accountability.
And this is the one that makes people uncomfortable because it involves risk. To build wealth, you have to take risks under your own name, publicly.
Put your name on it.
Put your name on the package. Think about the difference between a mid-level manager at a huge corporation and a founder like, say, Elon Musk. The manager hides behind the corporate logo. If their project fails, well, the company takes the hit. The manager might get a bad performance review, but they still get their paycheck.
There's a buffer.
A huge buffer. Elon puts his name on the side of the rocket. If the rocket explodes, his reputation explodes with it. But because he takes that massive public risk, society rewards him with the upside, with the equity.
So you can't get rich anonymously.
It's very, very hard to. You need to step out and say, I am responsible for this outcome, good or bad. That is what attracts equity and ownership. People give ownership to the person who is willing to take the blame. It's a transfer of risk.
Now we get to the third lever, and I think this is the most powerful concept in the entire almanac, leverage.
This is the multiplier. Archimedes said, give me a lever long enough and I shall move the world. In business, leverage is the tool that disconnects your inputs from your outputs.
Disconnects inputs from outputs. What does that mean?
Well, if you work a normal job, your input is 1 hour of your time. Your output is 1 hour of pay. That's a 1-to-1 relationship. There's no leverage. You will never get rich that way because there are only 24 hours in a day. You have a physical cap on your earnings.
You can't scale yourself.
You can't. Leverage is how you scale. And Naval breaks it down into 2 types, old leverage and new leverage.
Old leverage being labor and capital.
Right. To get rich in the 1900s, you had 2 options. You could convince 1,000 people to work for you. That's labor leverage. Or you could borrow $1 million to build a factory. That's capital leverage.
But there's a problem with those.
The problem with labor and capital is that they require permission. You need someone to say, yes, I will work for you, or yes, I, the banker, will lend you money. They are gate-kept. And labor is messy, people have egos, they get sick, they need to be managed. It's incredibly difficult.
But new leverage is different.
Completely different. New leverage is code and media. And the magic word here, the most important word, is permissionless.
Permissionless.
You don't need anyone's permission to write a piece of software in your basement. You don't need anyone's permission to record this deep dive or to start a YouTube channel. You can just do it.
And once it's created,
it works for you while you sleep. You can write a piece of code tonight, and tomorrow morning, 10,000 people around the world can be using it. The code doesn't get tired. It doesn't ask for a raise. And this is the physics of it. The marginal cost of replication is 0.
Okay, break down that phrase. Marginal cost of replication.
It costs me time and energy to sit here and record my side of this conversation once. But if one person listens to it, or if 1 million people listen to it, it costs me nothing extra. The digital product, the audio file, duplicates itself for free, infinitely.
Whereas if you build a car, the second car costs just as much in steel and labor as the first.
Exactly. That is the engine of all modern wealth. You build the machine once, the code, the podcast, the video, and it can scale to serve the entire world at no additional cost. This is why the tech generation is accumulating wealth so much faster than their parents. They are using tools with infinite permissionless leverage.
But there's a catch, isn't there? If you have infinite leverage, if you have a button that can reach 1 billion people,
Yep.
and you make a bad decision, you can do a lot of damage very, very quickly.
Which leads directly to the fourth and final component, judgment.
The steering wheel for the rocket ship.
Perfectly put. Leverage without judgment is chaos. Leverage amplifies your judgment. If your judgment is good, leverage makes you incredibly wealthy and impactful. If your judgment is poor, leverage ruins you and everyone around you.
I mean, you can look at the news any day of the week for an example of that.
Think about Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX. He had massive leverage code, media, capital, but his judgment was catastrophically flawed. So the leverage didn't make him a visionary, it just amplified his destruction into a multi-billion-dollar catastrophe.
So how do you build judgment? Because you can't just buy judgment on Amazon or take a course in it.
You don't, and Naval is very specific about this. You don't get judgment from reading the news or scrolling Twitter. That's just the latest panic, the latest outrage. It's noise.
It's short-term thinking.
It's all short-term thinking.
Yeah.
You get judgment from studying the foundations. You read history, philosophy, game theory, microeconomics, physics. You study the things that do not change.
Mm-hmm.
If you understand how humans have behaved for the last 2,000 years, you have a pretty good idea of how they're going to behave next week.
And this is where that great line from him comes in. Play long-term games with long-term people.
That is the ultimate application of judgment. He argues that ethics isn't just about being a nice person for moral reasons. It's actually just long-term greed.
Long-term greed. Explain that.
If you rip someone off in a business deal, you might win today. You get the money. But you've destroyed your reputation. In a connected world, your reputation is your most valuable asset. It is your liquidity. It is your ability to do future deals. If you play the long game, if you treat people fairly, you get the compounding interest on relationships. You become the person that everyone wants to work with.
I want to get tactical for a second. The transcripts mention the specific operating principle that I've actually tried to use in my own life. Set an aspirational hourly rate.
This is such a great practical tool that anyone listening can use today. Pick a number, and it should be an absurdly high number. Let's say $1,000 an hour or $5,000 an hour.
Okay, I've set my number. Now what?
Now, look at every task in your day through that lens. If you are spending an hour on the phone arguing with your internet company over a $20 overcharge, do the math. You are effectively paying $5,000 of your own time to save $20. It is a terrible, terrible business decision.
It feels painful, though. It feels like wasting money to just let them have the $20.
That's because your brain is currently valuing your time at zero, or close to it. You have to retrain your brain to see your time as your most scarce and valuable asset. If you want to be wealthy, you have to guard your time like it's gold.
So what do you do with those low-value tasks?
You outsource them, you automate them, or you just ignore them. If you can hire someone to mow your lawn for $50 and your aspirational rate is $500 an hour, you must hire them. Not because you're lazy, but because you need to free up that hour to go find the high-leverage opportunity, the specific knowledge, the piece of code, the investment that actually pays you at your real rate.
It's about creating the space to take the leap. You can't spot the future if you're buried in laundry and administrative tasks.
You're buying back your attention, and attention is what you use to build wealth.
Let's shift gears. We've talked about the individual building their own wealth machine. But even the art of the leap investors know that eventually you need a team. You can't build a rocket ship by yourself.
No, leverage eventually requires other people.
And Naval released a podcast in November 2025, specifically about this. His thesis is blunt, and I'm quoting here, "The team you build is the company you build."
It sounds like a generic platitude from a motivational poster, but he means it in a very technical, literal sense. He argues that a founder can delegate almost everything eventually. Finance, operations, marketing, legal.
But not everything.
But there are a few things a founder can never fully delegate: vision, fundraising, and recruiting. And of those three, he argues that recruiting is the single most critical leverage point for a founder.
He advocates for what the source calls a geniuses-only approach. That sounds, well, it sounds a bit exclusionary and frankly exhausting to maintain.
It is exhausting, and it is exclusionary, but the logic behind it is mathematical. He talks about the critical difference between A players and B players.
The top performers versus the average ones.
Right. A players, the so-called geniuses, only want to work with other A players. It's like a world-class jazz band. If everyone on stage is amazing, the music just flows. It's exhilarating. But the moment you put a mediocre player in the band, the A players get frustrated. They have to slow down, explain things twice, carry the extra weight, and eventually they leave.
So one bad hire can push out your best people.
It's worse than that. It creates a death spiral. Because here's the kicker. B players hire C players.
Why?
Because B players are often insecure. They don't want to hire someone smarter than them who might take their job or make them look bad, so they hire someone slightly worse than themselves. And those C players hire D players. Suddenly, you have a mediocrity explosion. The organization gets bigger, the headcount grows, but the average IQ and velocity of the company just drops like a stone.
So you have to be absolutely ruthless at the hiring gate.
Ruthless, no compromises.
He lists 4 traits to look for. 3 of them are pretty standard: intelligence, energy, and integrity. But then he adds a 4th one that I found really interesting: low ego. Why is low ego so critical for a startup?
Because ego is friction. In a startup, you are wrong all the time. The market tells you you're wrong. Your product idea is wrong. The code breaks. Your assumptions are wrong.
It's constant state of learning you were wrong a minute ago.
Exactly. A high-ego person takes that personally. They get defensive, they hide their mistakes, they play political games to make sure they look good, even when the project is failing. A low-ego person just wants to find the truth and win. They say, oh, my idea was wrong. Great, that's useful information. Let's fix it and try something else.
So ego slows you down.
In a startup, speed is everything. Velocity is life. And ego is like pouring sand in the gears of the machine. You want people who are obsessed with the mission's outcome, not their own personal status within the team.
He also has this controversial idea that early teams should look like a cult.
A monoculture of weird believers. This one definitely ruffles some feathers. In 2026, corporate HR departments talk constantly about diversity of thought. And Naval agrees that for a mature company like Google or Ford, you absolutely need that to avoid dangerous blind spots.
But not at the beginning.
Not in the 0 to 1 phase. When you are trying to do something that everyone else thinks is impossible, you need extreme alignment. You need everyone in the boat rowing in the exact same direction at the exact same time without arguing about the destination. You need fanatics. You can add diversity of thought later once the boat is actually floating and not sinking.
He gives a specific test that founders can use for hiring.
Yes, the WOW test.
Yeah.
It's brutally simple. During the interview process, you have a candidate interview one of your best team members. Afterwards, you go to your team member and you ask them what they thought.
And what are you looking for?
You are listening for them to come back and say, wow, that person is amazing. We have to hire them. If they say anything less, if they say, they seem pretty good, or they could probably do the job, it's a no. A maybe is a no. If you have to talk yourself into hiring someone, you have already made a huge mistake.
That's a high bar.
It has to be.
That brings us to the final and perhaps the most important section of our deep dive today. We've covered how to spot the future, which is the leap. We've covered how to build the wealth engine using leverage. We've covered how to build the team, which is talent density. But Naval is arguably most famous now for his appearance on the Modern Wisdom podcast in 2025, where he laid out his harsh truths of life.
This is the part that hits hard. This is the why behind all the other stuff.
And the central paradox he identifies is the tension between success and happiness.
This is the core problem for almost every ambitious person. Naval argues that success and happiness are often, and maybe even fundamentally, enemies.
How so?
Think about what it takes to be truly successful in the worldly sense. You need dissatisfaction. You have to look at the world and say, this is broken and I am going to be the one to fix it. You have to wake up every morning wanting more. You are constantly running a race.
Ambition is fueled by a desire for things to be different.
Yes, but happiness. What is happiness? By his definition, it is being content with what you have. It is the absence of desire. It is wanting the present moment to be exactly as it is. It is sitting still. The state of success is running and the state of happiness is sitting still.
So the very traits that make you rich, that obsession, that drive, that constant dissatisfaction, are the exact same traits that make you miserable.
Exactly. You are literally training yourself to be unhappy in order to become successful. And the great tragedy is that many people win the game of wealth only to realize they have completely lost the game of life. They get the money, they get the status, but they can't turn off the dissatisfaction engine. They're still running a race that they already won.
So what's the solution? You just give up on success and go meditate on a mountain?
No. His point is that you have to pursue them as two separate projects. And you have to realize that happiness is a skill, not a reward. You don't get happy when you buy the Ferrari. You might feel a jolt of pleasure for a day, but then the hedonic treadmill kicks in and you just start wanting a helicopter.
Your baseline resets.
It always resets. So you have to train for happiness just like you train for fitness at the gym. It is an internal practice, not an external achievement.
He talks about the attention economy in a way that I think is really relevant for 2026 with all the distractions we have.
He says attention, not time, is your real currency. We all complain that we're short on time, but look at how we actually spend it. We spend hours doom scrolling on social media, or worrying about political events we can't control, or fighting pointless status games online.
That's leaking attention.
It's leaking your life force. He advises what he calls rational Buddhism. You don't have to go live in a cave and renounce the world. But you need mental hygiene. You need to regularly scrape the barnacles off the hull of your ship. You need to reach inbox 0 for your own brain.
And one of the biggest blockers to that, he says, is pride. He calls pride the most expensive emotion.
Think about the cost of pride. If you are proud, you cannot admit you are wrong. If you cannot admit you are wrong, you cannot learn. If you cannot learn, your mental model of the world becomes outdated.
Which is a death sentence in a rapidly changing world.
It's a total death sentence. In an age of AI and constant technological shifts, if you are defending an old idea simply because of your pride, you're going to get run over by reality. Pride makes you rigid, and in nature and in business, rigid things break. You want to be flexible. You want to be able to wake up and say, everything I believed yesterday was wrong, but I'm smarter today.
He also touches on parenting, which is interesting because he's such an analytical systems-level thinker. And kids are, well, they're pure chaos.
They are chaos. And he calls children the ultimate hack for getting over yourself. We are all naturally selfish creatures focused on our own needs and desires. But when you have a child, suddenly there is something in the world you care about more than your own ego. It forces you out of your own head.
What's his actual advice on parenting?
It's very simple. He boils it down to 3 things. Unconditional love, instill high self-esteem, and encourage agency. And there is that word again, agency.
It really is the golden thread through all of this, isn't it?
That connects everything.
The angel investors have the agency to bet on the invisible future. The wealth builder has the agency to create permissionless leverage and build their own systems. The happy person has the agency to control their own internal reaction to the external world.
Agency is the opposite of victimhood. A person with a victim mentality believes, the world is happening to me. A person with agency believes, I am happening to the world. Naval's entire philosophy from investing to happiness is about making that fundamental shift from victim to player.
We're coming up on time. We've walked through the investing strategies of these legends, the leverage frameworks of the almanac, and the philosophy of happiness. If the listener takes just one thing away from this massive stack of information, if they're driving to work right now and their head is spinning, what is the one thought they should hold on to?
I think it's the thought of mortality. And I know that sounds dark, but stick with me. Naval talks about this a lot. Everything goes to 0.
Everything goes to 0.
The universe will eventually end in heat death. The sun will expand and swallow the earth. In 1,000 years, nobody will remember you or me or this conversation. Your company will crumble. Your money will vanish. It all returns to dust.
Okay, that sounds incredibly depressing.
It sounds bleak. But he argues it's actually the ultimate liberation. Because if it all goes to 0 anyway, then you don't need to be paralyzed by the fear of failure. You don't need to be so afraid of looking stupid.
Because the stakes are ultimately nothing.
The stakes are cosmic dust, so you might as well play the game. You might as well build the company. You might as well take the leap. Not because you need to win to prove your work to the universe, but because playing the game is fun. Life is a game that you are guaranteed to lose eventually, because you die. So you might as well play it beautifully and with full commitment while you are here.
The source material ends with a final provocative thought that I want to read verbatim. It says, you can keep chasing better, or you can decide this moment is enough. The ultimate win might not be the exit or the IPO, but the ability to sit quietly in a room and be content.
Pascal said that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And Naval is telling us that solving that problem, the internal problem of being enough, is the true definition of wealth, if you can do that. And you also happen to have $1 billion from applying his other principles, then you've really won the whole game.
A powerful place to leave it. This has been a deep dive into the mind of the builders, the investors, and the philosophers of our time. Thank you for joining us in the deep end. We'll see you next time.
See you then.